Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is June the 5th, 2026. Hopefully this episode finds you well, in good spirits and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Happy Friday, everyone. Hopefully the day has treated you well, is treating you well, depending on when you're listening to this. I don't know, if you're not listening to this on a Friday, hopefully the energy still catches you well. I know it's been a while since I said that. I haven't really recorded on a Friday in a bit. It's been a little bit, but I guess you could say that this was intended to be a bit of a bonus episode, if you will. But we'll get to why this is just going to be more or less a reshoot of things of sorts. But yeah, let's go ahead and just do a rundown of my night into my day. This beautiful, wonderful Friday. But let's see. I was, chilling, settling, post, podcast, post, Whopper Burger. And I was pretty tired. I was pretty pooped out. And I decided to tuck in early, knowing that was probably going to be a bad call because I was going to wake up in the middle of the night and I needed to wake up early because I was going to go to the dentist on Friday. I was going to be off. So, things happened. I wake up, I want to say maybe around like 12 o'clock. I think maybe I fell asleep around like 9-ish, 10-ish, something around that time. And I'm up and I'm like, this isn't good. So I'm hanging out for a few hours. I think I do wind up going to bed around, I don't know, I'm not really sure, sometime in the middle of the night. We get up, I'm pretty tired, but, I feel like I've slept some. I'm hanging out, just kind of getting myself ready to go to the dentist. Which I will say I had a bit of a harrowing moment before I even go to the dentist, which was annoying. I was kind of dreading it, but I had to take all my piercings out because they were going to be doing x-rays and all of that stuff. And, I get most of them out, but then my left, lip piercing was just like being stubborn. It was like stubbornly stuck. I realized in like a bit of my panic that I was twisting the wrong way, and I was like, dude, what is your problem? You need to calm down. You need to chill out. But I managed to get everything out, and so I'm good to go. I'm barefaced for the first time in a very long time. Felt a little strange, but we get ourselves together and we go to the dentist. And I gotta say, it was a pretty nice place. Pretty, I wouldn't say swanky for a dental office, but it was nice. Maybe somewhere between nice and swanky. I was thinking of the thing, they had like little things that they could give you if you were like nervous, like headphones, a blanket, they had TV. And I think the last thing that really that caught me, I was trying not to laugh while I was thinking about, was like they could tell you a joke. It's like, comedy does cut through all things, doesn't it? But needless to say, it was nice. Everyone was nice at the premises, so I appreciate that. Being that it had been so long since I've been to the dentist, to any kind of dental office, whatever. And now I was going there, long-time listeners might clock, for my mouth pain that I've been having. Granted, lately, bit of an update on that, it's been a lot better. It hasn't really been hurting. But that being said, kind of just talking to the dentist, it would probably be for the best if I go ahead and go forward with getting the surgery. Probably just going to get the one tooth, not the other two that I have remaining after that, because I technically have 3 right now. So that's probably what we're going to go on it, but I just didn't want to pull the trigger like today, because, by the time I got done with everything, because we did x-rays, which I had to bite down and do a bunch of weird positions with like where I was biting down, which was weird, but they got all my x-rays, which was weird to see my mouth like 3D scanned. That did not look cute, but it is what it is. They let me know my mouth situation. I felt like I was a car. They were just telling me how like fucked up my shit was from just years of not getting cleaned. And excuse me, they're like, yeah, you have gingivitis, so we want to make sure we're getting this stuff like really cleaned out. Da da da. And they let me know what they can do in terms of like, because I'm doing all this x-ray stuff, and then they're like, hey, do you want to do a full cleaning? I'm like, yeah, I want to do a full cleaning after you tell me my mouth is fucking disgusting, and I can clearly see my mouth is fucking disgusting. So they're just hitting my shit with this water pick, I think is what it was. Man, I've had it done before, but being that years have passed, that shit hit different. I was hearing that shit like it felt like I was getting like a alien probe through my mouth. I don't know, man. Ugh. When that shit was hitting my gums in places I had not hit in God knows how long, man, I was not comfortable for that. But we got through it. Got everything cleaned out, and we got all the fluoride on. It was very nice. I literally felt like I was like asleep but awake the whole time, if that makes sense. But we got through everything a-okay. My mouth looks a lot better. So yeah, overall a good experience. W dentist. So yeah, we get ourselves home and, kind of collect ourselves a little bit, get my piercings back on, which is also a little bit of a hassle. But I think at this point it was more so because I was just really hungry and tired, and I was just like having problems handling little things in my chubby little hands. So, that just was what it was. But we finally get everything done together. I hang out for a little bit, get myself together. I go to the gym. Gym was nice little run. I tried to keep it a little bit lighter because I felt like I've been pretty sore. I've been hitting it throughout the whole week, and it's the weekend. It's the freaking weekend, baby. So I'm like, let's just, kind of chill, ease into this shit. And that felt pretty good. I was supposed to do a little bit more cardio to compensate that, but given all the time at play in our hand, whatever, I was like, let's just do 15 minutes, call it a day. So that's what we did. We came home, had our stretch, had our snack, and here we are, ready to yap. Now, about the fact that this is going to be a reshoot. Like I said, I realized this in the dead of night last night, coming up, out of my sleep or whatever, because I had made a correction. Or maybe I'd realized this yesterday. I think I fully realized it. No, I fully realized the episode was fucked last night, because part of it did play. So mea culpa if you listen to the episode and not yesterday's episode, but the one before that, it's deleted now. But if you listen to it and it's like, hey, there's dead air, sometimes these things happen. I say we a lot, but I mean it in like a royal sense, or like I'm just butchering the English language as I want to do. It's just me out here, y'all. I'm the one cranking all the machines, working all the gears. Any kind of editing process, things like that, is just things I kind of get to when I can. Okay, so we're just kind of manning all the helms here. And I realized there was some kind of issue and the episode is just dead air. So love that for me. Also, mind you, Inside Baseball, I had to shoot that episode like 5 times for other issues. So, it's a big curse. Fingers crossed, knock on the wood, that everything's going to work out for this episode and we don't have an issue. Because we do have some things that I wanted to talk about. I really wanted to talk about these issues at play. A couple of them international, and then, just big thing that happened in California. So yeah, we're going to get to it. We're going to try to cover it. So, newsies give me strength here. Let's go ahead and do our startup and let's get into the news. Okay. First story comes from the BBC. Henry Nowak. Henry Nowak case. What happened and why it caused national outrage. The murder of an 18-year-old student, Henry Nowak, has drawn national attention and questions over how police treated him in his final moments. Nowak was fatally stabbed in Southampton in December by Vikram Digwa, who falsely claimed he had been racially abused and had acted in self-defense. Digwa was jailed for life on Monday with a minimum term of 21 years. But the release of body cam footage showing Nowak being handcuffed as he lay dying has led to intense scrutiny of the police response, with the case also sparking fresh debates about around knife laws, race, policing, and public trust. Henry Nowak from Chadford 100 in Essex, was a first-year accountancy and finance student at the University of Southampton. His family said he had been fully embracing university life and had been out with his football mates on the night of his death. His family described him as a much-loved son and brother who was kind, intelligent, and talented. In statements read to Southampton Crown Court, his sister Olivia called him her best friend and said they had an unbreakable bond. Mum Lucy Ross said her son had been ambitious, determined, and full of life. Nowak crossed paths with 23-year-old Vikram Digwa on Belmont Road, Southampton, at about 23:30 GMT on December 3rd, while walking home alone after a night out with friends. In what Judge William Mousley, KC, described as a chance meeting, the court heard Nowak was alone, unarmed, and had been drinking at a level below the drink drive limit. Mousley said Digwa was carrying a knife in a sheath, as well as a second larger dagger linked to his tradition as a member of the Nihang Order of Sikhs. Nowak appeared to notice the larger blade and began filming Digwa on his phone. The judge said Nowak asked Digwa if he was a bad man before Digwa took the phone. Now, this was a thing when I initially had recorded I did not know about. And this is not me saying that, hey, I'm going to now have a little bit of context and blame the victim for what happened here. No, but I am saying that is just something that I find very odd. I don't put myself in a situation and I look around and I can understand maybe you're feeling nervous or whatever, so you're going to have your phone out to record. That's your right to do or whatever. Fine. If it makes you feel safer. But then to prompt that question, I just don't get. And I'm not saying that then merits someone then to lead into an altercation where they pull out their knife and stab you. No, but I'm saying, why? Wouldn't you just want to keep your shit moving and get home? That's me. That's me in that situation. I don't know. Anyway, he said the exact events that followed were witnessed only by the two men, but that Digwa deliberately stabbed Nowak. Nowak suffered 4 stab wounds, including a fatal injury to the chest. The judge says Digwa filmed Nowak as he suffered following the stabbing. Digwa was found guilty of murder and was jailed with a minimum term of 21 years. He was also sentenced for carrying a knife in public. The judge rejected his claims that Nowak had racially abused him and that he had acted in self-defense. He told Digwa that his actions had brought shame on his family and his religion and had stirred up racial tension in Southampton and across the country. Though it's like, I mean, dude saw his Kapoor, his religious knife, I feel like, and was like, are you a bad guy? It's like, to some extent here, like I said, at least hearing that bit, I can even understand a legal defense of saying, no, I was racially profiled and talked to in a way that I didn't find becoming. Once again, not justifying the behavior of attacking somebody or letting things escalate to that point. Also on Digwas, and he should have just kept the shit moving. You're not a bad man. Don't let this fucking guy, this little dude bother you. Instead, things escalated to a point where now you're stabbing him. And then when your brother calls 999, he's saying, hey, this is a religious or a racial thing. And you're going along with it, saying he like pulled at your turban, you know, and all that kind of shit. So it becomes a whole other thing, and now it is being blown up by a lot of the right. But I mean, really, the Labour Party on the left is more or less enabling the same kind of thing, saying they're shocked and da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, okay, there's no balanced take on this at all. They're just kind of going along with the narrative and saying, we feel so sorry, and we're looking into how the cops fucked up. And to me, I do agree that the cops fucked up here. In the previous article I read, essentially a cop that came up, sized up the situation, looked at Nowak, who was already like, I believe, like kind of sitting down. He was like, and Nowak had said he was stabbed. He's like, that's weird, mate. It doesn't look like you've been stabbed. It's like, brother, then look harder, because he clearly has been. And they handcuffed him, and then he's literally dying. He passes out. They look him over again, realize he has been stabbed. They uncuff him and then do CPR. That's the shit that has people really fucking mad, and I can understand that. That's a fucked up, situation from the cops. But once again, everyone's really focusing on, you were actually more concerned that a brown guy was being hurt and a white guy died. And that's really where the conversation's getting people arced up, and it's got people out in the streets rioting, throwing shit at cops. So, I mean, that's really where we're at with it. Now you're kind of getting this the Isaiah's way for the sake of time. But I did want to cover this. I did want to kind of throw my 2 cents out there. Condolences. This is a sad ass fucking situation. I'll say that shit off the fucking rip. I don't want to make light of it. But I do think it's upsetting to see how the shit's being played out politically, and it's been really inflated to a culture war situation and less of like, hey, we should really be focusing on like how the cops are really fucking this shit up. But hey, so it goes. Even I've heard JD Vance ringing on it and like once again saying this is a migration issue. It's like, brother, this isn't that. And even the knife thing is a whole thing, and whether or not we should be or they should be regulating in terms of like this religious knife, which is a different situation from a pocket knife, which you were allowed to have. I believe he had, like I said, 2 knives. That's a whole other can of worms that I don't feel like getting into tonight, whatever, for the sake of time. But, definitely worth talking about, definitely worth pondering. So yeah, starting there, let's move on to our next article from the BBC as well. Royal Navy crew killed in helicopter crash named. Three members of the Royal Navy who died in a helicopter crash during a training exercise have been named. The crew were Lieutenant, I believe, Commander Chris Gayson, 42, Lieutenant Lily Faye Fisher, 31, who was Britain's only female Navy commando, and Petty Officer Owen Green, 24. The Ministry of Defense, or the MOD, has confirmed. All 3 were based in RNAS Yeovilton, Somerset. Their families all paid tribute, while the military described them as deeply capable and professional aviators and cherished members of the Commando Helicopter Force. Gayson, Fisher, and Green died on board a Merlin Mk4 helicopter that had crashed at about 3:45 BST on Wednesday near Oakenhampton, Devon. I believe I have that picture in the thumbnail. Gayson's family said he was an extremely kind and gentle family man who loved his entire family dearly. The family of Fisher said she was an extraordinary woman, while Green's family said she was a caring and loving, Green's family said he was a caring and devoted son, brother, grandson, and partner to Iona, whom he loved and cherished. And they have more details just about the situation, more condolences, and testimonials for the people who knew the 3 pilots. Obviously, very unfortunate situation. I'm thinking this is like a training scenario, and to lose your life and that kind of thing, obviously that sucks, but I mean, any kind of way. That helicopter shit, man, it obviously, every time I cover one of these stories, it always scares me. It always gives me the heebie-jeebies, because like, you're just not catching me on a helicopter, man. It's taking too many lives. Anyway, let me go ahead and move along. Our next story is from NBC News. Excuse me. California man who held 10 hostages before he was killed was a sex offender with gripes about conviction, police say. A California sex offender who was killed after he held several people hostage during an hours-long standoff had expressed concerns over how his case was handled, according to police and his former attorney. The man, identified as Anthony Scott Searles Harris, 41, stormed the building on Chester Avenue and 17th Street in Bakersfield just before 1 p.m. Tuesday, authorities said. Police said at a news conference Wednesday that they had began receiving calls shortly afterward about a man with explosives inside. Shields, I'm always messing his name up. Shields Harris barricaded himself on the second floor and took 10 Kern County Superintendent of Schools employees hostage. Bakersfield Assistant Police Chief Jeremy Blakemore said. The standoff prompted a massive law enforcement response that involved crisis negotiators and the FBI. Kern County School Superintendent John Mendiburu said he was relieved the incident was resolved without physical injury to any KCSOS staff members. Let's see here, skipping ahead a bit. Blakemore said 2 of the hostages were released Tuesday following negotiations that involved discussions and exchanges related to food and water, those types of things. There was also some element related to his previous case and in terms of materials that he wanted to see. So we were able to provide some of that in exchange for getting release of the hostages, he said. After the first 2 hostages were released, Blakemore said, negotiations stalled, and Searles Harris refused to release anyone else. During the standoff, police said the man revealed that he had explosives attached to himself, which law enforcement could see, according to Blakemore. The suspect also said explosives had been attached to some of the hostages, which law enforcement was able to confirm based on its own observations. 5 of the hostages had been tied up, said Sid Patel, special agent in charge of FBI's Sacramento field office. One of the hostages had her phone and was communicating with law enforcement until it died, Patel said. He told reporters that she has diabetes and that authorities were able to get medicine to her. But I think also because of that situation, once her phone died, they're like, we really need to expedite this process because we've lost now a link into the situation and we're not getting any further with Seals Harris. And so if we're hitting a brick wall, we know we have a person whose life's on the line here, like specifically like it's timing. Maybe we need to move now and not wait. And so they decided to neutralize him. He was pronounced dead at the scene following a shooting with FBI personnel, Bakersfield police said in a statement. All the hostages were physically unharmed. Authorities said Seals Harris was known to law enforcement. He served in the Army from 2006 to 2007, but was dishonorably discharged for going AWOL. His criminal history includes using weapons to commit violent offenses, Patel said. And in 2014, he was charged with sex acts with a child under 14. He was a registered sex offender, police said. A motive remains under investigation. Police do not believe Kern County schools employees were the targets. Though I think it's kind of floated by his defense attorney that like maybe he just kind of wanted to go out like death by cop. Like he wanted the FBI to kind of take him out in that situation. He was very frustrated. They do go through the details of what got him indicted, and they're very fucked up situations. Obviously, in my opinion, this guy was a very gross, evil individual. So yeah, I think it kind of matches with the profile that they were saying that this guy was a narcissist who wanted to blame everyone but himself. And it was the world's fault that he was where he was and why he was in the situation, and he was going to take it out on them. I feel like that was kind of the motion. Speculation's hats on there, but crazy that it got to the point where people are strapped up with explosives like it's a goddamn movie. And I'm glad that the hostages all got out safe, so that's a good thing there. Clap it up for that. But yeah, we will go ahead and move along to our next story here from Yahoo News, or the Associated Press. Kuwait says Iranian drones hit airport and killed one as ceasefire is tested again. Iranian drones heavily damaged a passenger terminal at Kuwait's main airport Wednesday, killing one person, wounding dozens, and briefly closing the airfield in the latest in back-and-forth attacks by Iran and the U.S. that test a fragile ceasefire. The strike reinforced the risks to residents and travelers in the Gulf countries that had considered themselves relative havens before the U.S.-Israeli war within Iran. Iran denied causing the damage. They said, "Oh, actually, this is America. They blew up their own drone or missile or something. Oops, not us." Let's see here. There's really not much I wanted to pull from this. I believe it was an Indian national who was killed, if I'm not mistaken. An Indian national was killed in Kuwait's main airport. So yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that yet again this war, even though it's in a ceasefire, it's in a quote unquote state of peace, so to speak, is still taking more lives. There's still that slack tension, but then there's tension, and then there's not. So we're in that state of, I guess, slack again, so to speak. But things are still hot in Lebanon, which is connected to this shit. I know I had covered that in the House, in terms of moving to American Congress. Some Republicans had bandied with some Democratic measures to say, hey, you need to actually come and talk to us about this Iran war shit. We need to revisit this shit, which is largely symbolic. It has to go through the Senate, and then even if the Senate agreed, most likely Donald Trump's just going to veto that shit and keep doing what he's doing anyway the whole time. So, but still, it is a measure saying, hey, people are getting fed up with this shit. And, I'm sure some Republicans who were absent at the time could have scrambled to make things happen. And I just couldn't get there. Couldn't get there to rally from my God Emperor Donald Trump. I'm so sorry. I'll get there next time. I promise. And Mike Johnson couldn't stop the shit. He's like, this shit is stupid. But, he, like I said, he couldn't stop the train of rolling. But that being said, I wanted to close out with the Senate, actually. And this is current news. This was the only thing I kind of had on the stack, actually, for today. But needless to say, I don't mind doing a little bit of a, redo, so to speak. But let's go ahead and do our last break, and we will close it out. All right. Our last story comes from NPR. Senate passes $70 billion immigration enforcement bill without limits on Trump settlement fund. The Senate passed legislation to fund President Donald Trump's immigration enforcement agencies early Friday morning after weeks of delays and fierce backlash to an unrelated $1.776 billion settlement fund that threatened to derail the bill. Senators vetoed 52 to 47 for the $70 billion legislation to fund immigration and customs enforcement and border patrol for the next 3 years, through the end of Trump's term. The final vote came just before 5 a.m. after Republicans narrowly defeated multiple attempts by Democrats and Republicans to add language to the bill that would permanently ban Trump's settlement fund for political allies who believe they have been politically persecuted. Also, it's worth noting, I didn't say this on the pod. Even if this shit gets floated or it doesn't go anywhere, as it stands, all of the shit that I mentioned in terms of their tax stuff with the IRS being completely you can't touch them on that, you can't get into that, at least all the prior stuff, that still remains no matter what. They're just not going to deal with that. And this is essentially making sure that is also in submit, I guess. So that's fun. That's interesting. That once again, it's just another example of Teflon Don, I guess. You just really don't get to touch him on this shit. He's going to get away clean with everything. And we love it for him. We love it for, once again, our God Emperor. May he reign forever. Republicans cleared a major hurdle overnight when they defeated an amendment proposed by one of its own members, Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy, that would have redirected payments from the settlement to members of law enforcement that were injured in the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol, which makes sense if you're going to do this fucking bullshit, but they're no. And there's more vague, blah, blah, yada, yada, yada. I think this is all kind of details. Really, the top line is what's most important and what I wanted to cover for the episode. So there we go. We can get out of Congress. I'm done with that. But yeah, being done with that is me being done with the episode. So if you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/AZANews. Become a newsie today. Free ways to hit me up, AZANews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Subscribe to the YouTube, follow on TikTok, follow on Spotify, follow on Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen. Leave a like, leave a cool comment. Sharing is always caring. 5 stars on Spotify, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts are always appreciated. But if you don't do that, if you don't do Nathan at all, that's A-okay by me. I really just appreciate you hanging out, letting me yap at you for, a few minutes and, calling it a day. So yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.